Hello YouTube, welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Kevin and this is the Red Pilling channel. So we need to talk a little bit about voter ID. My last video, I got some feedback. I actually got a decent viewing on my last video about, my last video I mentioned something about why I think the SAVE Act as well is necessary, and person asked me, is there any evidence or data to show that states are not I don't of states not being capable of being honest in elections to a point where things like the SAVE Act is necessary. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So there's a lot of talk about the SAVE Act. There's a lot of people are afraid of it. There's a lot of paranoia. Um, so what is the SAVE Act? Well, the SAVE Act requires there's that going forward, to register to vote, you have to show ID. And there's concern about this because the ID doesn't seem to require. It's not just your drive. You can't just use your driver's license. You also have to show them proof that you are a citizen in this country. And the argument from the Democrats is that that it's an infringement on their voting rights because not everybody has access to things like their birth certificate or passport or any proof of residency. So Democrats are arguing that this is a voter rights violation because it's disenfranchising voters, and specifically they're trying to scare married women into thinking they won't be able to vote because of a lot of time women change their name, and so their name's going to be different on their driver's license than birth certificate. And that's been there, and also like low income people, so poorer people and elderly. That's the one demographics. And well, here's the thing. Just because it's an inconvenience does not make it a violation of rights. There's a difference between violating rights and being an inconvenience, and it's not hard to request a new birth certificate and a passport to those things to verify who you are. And there's ways to change your name. So there's so anyway, this whole fear mongering that the left is doing to scare people, and it just isn't going to work with me. And most Americans support it. Over 80% of Americans support it. Even 71% of Democrats support it. All minority groups, all minority groups, and obviously white people, every racial demographic, even men and even women, right, agree that we should have a voter ID. I mean, I think the only demographic that doesn't think we should have voter ID are progressive white women, because to them everyone's too stupid to know how to do these things. That's the narrative that they push, right? Minorities are too dumb to do that. Um, Other married women are too dumb to know how to switch their names and stuff like that, get these documentations, and yeah, so everyone's too dumb but them. So we have to, make little rules because to them, yeah. So that's the demographic that only opposes ID, and obviously the Democrats, because they want to sway elections, and they don't want integrity. In elections, I'm sorry, they don't want integrity. They call everyone election deniers who even question a legitimate election. And the question isn't even about, is there mass voter fraud in this country? Like people are in the back just just filling out fake ballots, voting, making sure that Biden ballots are filled with Biden, or let's say any Democrat, and doing that. Well, there's different ways to fraudulent ballots. Yes, there's tampering with ballots, but you can also count illegal ballots. In other words, they could be ballots that maybe they are legitimate voters, but they are done illegally. They do things in a illegal way to make sure that their voters count. And deep down, Democrats are only paranoid because their Democrat votes are not getting counted. And notice Democrats always say count every vote. They never say legal vote, but count every vote. So Dems have definitely lost the narrative, and it's popular. But Republicans, and the thing is, I think Republicans agree on wanting to do it, but to pass the SAVE Act, you have to potentially nuke the filibuster and to do it. And Thune is too much of a wimp to do it because he's afraid Democrats will do it. Well, Dems may do it anyways, and you might as well go on offense for once. Because to me, if we don't have secure elections on who's voting, and make it's not and making sure that the people who are voting are legitimate people, they're not dead people, they're not people who shouldn't be in this country, and there are people that are not voting in more than once in two different states because that's happened. Those all need to be looked at. So we definitely don't have integrity in our country. Elections are ran even worse than a third world country. Even Somalia's elections are actually more secure than America's elections, and because they even require photo ID. Every country requires voter ID, making sure you're a citizen, all these basic common sense things except America. That's just, we're not a serious country in regards to that. So unfortunately, because of that, I do think states are not capable of being able to count elections anymore. And if you think of, and here's an example why it's necessary. Well, yeah, 36 states, I think it is, 36 states require some form of ID. And some states it's non-photo ID required, and some states it's photo ID required, but it's some sort of identifications. But if you think about it, and that there's at least 14, I think, right? There's at least 14 other states that don't require an ID at all, and they're generally very blue areas. Okay? And, you have Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, New Mexico, Minnesota, Illinois, New York, and all the coastal states don't require ID to vote. So we have no idea who these people are, and that's really what the goal is to get ID in all these states. So yeah, there's definitely a problem. We need integrity, and so voter ID is needed, and some argue that there's better ways to do this than the way we're doing it. No, we know there's definitely some evidence that we have out there that illegals vote, or maybe not in mass droves, because it doesn't mean all illegals that are on voter rolls vote, but I think in some cases there has been evidence of that happening. And at very best, there are some that are on voter rolls, and they won't even clean them out. Here in Wisconsin, they were ordered to clean out the voter rolls and take out the non-citizens, and they wouldn't do it. So the Dems don't want any integrity. Now, I will argue this point, and this is kind of an important topic, okay? Because, obviously, I do think 2020, I don't think it was a legitimate election. I don't think most elections have in blue states or even purple states are fully legitimate. But here's the example, and here's an argument that might make sense, particularly in Wisconsin. Okay? In Wisconsin, every year, every election cycle in a close state, there's always this mysterious dump around 4 a.m. or so. There's this late dump, and that usually for pretty much all for one candidate. And I just the biggest argument is 100, this candidate leading by this many votes, and then 186,000 vote. Like last time it was like 166,000 voters left, but it all went 85-15% to one candidate, usually the Democrats. Well, the argument is true that it's very possible that's not enough evidence to say those were fraudulent ballots, because, well, you have to also take into account that Milwaukee is heavily Democrat, and you're going to get huge numbers. So an 85 and 15%, for example, that does make sense numbers if you look at how many of that vote is supposed to be favorable to Biden. But either way, there has not been good effort to even answer the questions, who were those voters, because Dems just tell us to shut up, you election denier. So all it does is cause more doubt in our election system. So anyway, I'm gonna use Wisconsin, my home state, to examples. So 42,000, for example, in 2020 were listed inactive, and according to Wisconsin law, you're supposed to, I think you get emails that you're supposed to respond to kind of show you're active. And if you don't, after a while, inactive voters have to re-register. And so they voted anyways. And so at least 42,000 of those voters voted anyway without being inactive. So they could have been voters, but they're not done legally. Dems counted them anyways. And it's kind of interesting, and I'll be fair here, the voters it doesn't necessarily say that they were Dem voters. But I think it's pretty clear that it probably was most likely the Democrats, looking at where they're going. So, they say count every vote, so they did. So you also have in Wisconsin here, and it almost, some say this isn't true, but it's like it says there's only 4 million people. There's like 5 million people registered. The population wise in Wisconsin, I think only 3 to 4 million people are registered. I think it was 3.4, but they have somehow 7.1 million voters on the registered voter rolls, and they won't clean them out. So obviously Wisconsin's declined, but they could very well be people that are on the voter rolls from 200 years ago. I mean, who knows? So again, there's no integrity. So, they very well could be people in another state that's voting. I don't know. We don't know. We have no idea. And, why they're not cleaning the voter rolls out is just ludicrous to me. So, and here's the big one. And this one is the one that people should understand the most. But there is a loophole in Wisconsin. And this one, more than 140,000 voters are being automatically sent ballots without ever needing to show ID. So it sounds like these are voters that automatically sent ballots without needing to show ID, staggering 6 times the election margin between Biden and Trump in state where every vote counts. How can we trust the results when 142 people might use indefinitely confined status to bypass election safeguards? This loophole only invites doubts about the 2024 outcome as well. Why aren't Democrats concerned about election integrity? Both parties must address this issue, or are Democrats content with voter fraud? So I thought that was pretty neutral. I don't think it's saying both parties should be concerned. So yeah, it allows the loophole allows anyone to claim they're unable to vote in person. This honor-based system sent ballots automatically. Sorry, not million. That's a mistake. They sent, at least 140,000. That's the number the reporting here sends millions automatically without needing to show an ID. So we don't know who the people are. They could very well be people. And I think the court ruled that they're not identified. They didn't overturn the election, but even the court, I think, um, um, sided with the arguments that these voters may not be legitimate because we cannot identify them. So it's very possible they might be real people, but it seems to me they did not go through the process of having to show proper documentation to prove that they are who they say they are. So again, Dems cheat in different ways. They may not tamper with ballots, but they definitely exploit rules, or they go around laws using loopholes to make sure that they count every vote they can, and they do. So, and not too long ago, there's a poll that I've showed that like 40% of people who don't believe Americans believe elections are legitimate. And, you could say that's not a majority, but that's a lot of people that don't feel that our elections are legitimate. I mean, Hillary Clinton is technically the one that started the whole thing anyways, because I mean, she would not shut up about the election either when she lost to Trump, and she thought Trump stole it too, right? And then you have the case where you had voters when Trump beat Kamala Harris that where did all those 15 million those other millions of voters go? Where did they just appear? So again, it's clear that just tells you Democrats believe Republicans cheat too. And you know what? They probably do, because why else would John Thune and the Republican establishment be so afraid to nuke the filibuster? Is it that they're just afraid to nuke the filibuster, or do Republicans cheat in primaries as well to prevent real candidates from winning that might take away their power? Because the swamp doesn't want to give up power, whether it comes from the Democrat or the Republican. I do think Dems cheat vastly more than Republicans do, but it doesn't mean Republicans won't either. So everyone should be demanding voter integrity, and you shouldn't want people that are not here, that are not supposed to be here to vote, because illegals do vote, maybe not in vast majority, but enough, they could in a place to sway the outcome. And even if there's one person that's illegal that voted, well, it shouldn't be happening at all. And there's ways to catch that, to prevent that. And, if illegals have driver's licenses, which is an ID, and they technically could go vote, technically. I mean, how else? I mean, yeah, there's arguments that, and not all states require proof of citizenship. I mean, we just had to recently. So there are loopholes around things, and that has to be secured. So I do think it's necessary. I do think we need to limit mail-in too, because they're not trustworthy. And I think if this doesn't pass, well, then nothing else matters if we can't trust our elections. Maybe Wisconsin is legitimately purple. I mean, let's be honest, Madison is kind of growing, and they're able to keep it competitive. Certain parts they're getting more Republican, it's keeping it competitive. So it probably won't ever be a fully red state. I think it's kind of naive, though, for Republicans to think that if we pass these election integrity bills, we're going to win all 50 states. I don't really think that's the case. I mean, no election's guaranteed, and it doesn't work like that. So it's not, and we want elections fair. We want to know the person that was elected was duly elected. And I also think election integrity is important, because I really do think it needs to be one-day voting, proof of citizenship, photo ID, and limited mail-in ballots unless you have a legitimate excuse why you can't. I feel like if you're an able person, and maybe make election day a federal holiday, That, to me, that's the most compromised way, because you're making sure everybody has a chance to cast their vote. So yeah, just because the SAVE Act makes something inconvenient is not an infringement. Sorry, it's just not. And the Constitution does allow for Congress to make laws that control federally. And plus, the SAVE Act would only apply to federal elections. And I think me as an American, we should not be allowing states to alter the elections that, or be lukewarm with elections that could impact someone in another state. It's important. We need integrity. We do, or else we don't have a country. If we can't, that means we can't vote a way out of this if people are deciding ahead of time who wins. And let's face it, it's partially why Democrats don't care, because they feel they have it all in the bag. And I think election integrity would force people to have to run on ideas. Votes should be earned, not handed to them. So anyway, what do you think? Anyway, that's why voter ID, the SAVE Act, is important. So anyway, I don't know. If you don't agree, I can't help you with that, but that's where I stand. And to me, that's the biggest issue I hope Trump solves. If he can save our elections, then that's what we need, because the future of this country depends on if we have free and fair elections. So again, if you like this video, please like. Let me know what you all think. If you like this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell for notification. The Red Pilling channel, out.